Hello, once again, I'm your host, Doc Rotten, and this is Horror News Radio, the official Gruesome Magazine podcast. Back with me again this week are the scariest, goriest, bloodiest co host on the net. And tonight we're reviewing Morbius. Finally. It finally came out on April Fool's Day. And boy, did it get us good. All right, who's joining us tonight? Let's start off with award winning filmmaker Christopher G. Moore. Sir, how are you doing?
I'm doing well, doing so well after watching this film.
You almost sound like you're saying swell. You're doing
I'm swell.
swell.
I'm so well. I'm swell.
You're not, but
It's
you're not
it's
swole.
it's like the old electric company thing, like so well, so well.
So well.
Yeah, there's probably about 5% of our audience that got
I
it.
know. I was going to say that worked in the '70s. I don't know about now. All right, joining us is our special guest host and film committee member of the New York City Horror Film Festival and screenwriter himself, Brian W. Smith. How you doing, sir?
I'm well, thank you. Thanks for having me back.
You are welcome. You may be throwing tomatoes at us by the end of the day, but hey, we try, right? We try. All right. So what we're going to get down into is reviewing Morbius, the Sony Spider-Verse Marvel Universe movie, maybe something along those lines,
Who
starring
knows?
Morbius, the living vampire, a character that I actually in comics really enjoy. So it's been looking forward to this for certain reasons. Does it live up? Well, we're here to discuss that. We're here to discuss that. But what we'll be doing is starting off with our first impressions. Now, our first impressions will be spoiler free. And then we're going to dive into a discussion. And when we do that, we will be getting into spoilers. We'll talk about all kinds of things. And Christopher, do you have any surprises for us tonight? Did you gather up
I have gathered Easter eggs if we want to
Easter
do
eggs?
that.
All right. We are happy about that. So we'll have some of those discussed. And then we'll wrap things up with our final thoughts, our score 1 to 5, and our favorite scene. And of course, we hope you enjoy not only this review, but many others that we have on the site. And if you want to help us out, it's easy for you to do. Hit the subscribe button, hit the like button, share with a friend. And we will be very, very thankful and grateful for you doing that. And of course, above all, let us know in the comments down below. What did you think? Did you like Morbius? Just dislike Morbius? What's up with the vulture? We'll get to that. All right. Let's do this. What is the card, sir? It is Morbius from Sony and Columbia Pictures 2022. Finally, I think when did we see the first trailer? In 2018 or 2019?
Like 50 years ago.
50 years ago, exactly. It's available in theaters beginning April 1st of 2022. The synopsis: Biochemist Michael Morbius tries to cure himself of a rare blood disease, but he inadvertently infects himself with a form of vampirism instead. Directed by Daniel Espinosa, written by Matt Sazama and Burk Sharpless. And the character was created by Roy Thomas and Gil Kane. Back in Amazing Spider-Man 101. Wow. The cast includes Jared Leto, Matt Smith, Adria, Arjona, Jared Harris, briefly, Tyrese Gibson, not sure why, and Al Madrigal, who does better than Tyrese, and Michael Keaton to make us all angry and upset. All right. Not going to spoil anything out of the gate, but maybe I will. I don't know. Let's get into this. This is going to be fun. We normally would cover this. I'll preface this with being on the Heroes and Droids, but it's a full month for Heroes and Droids with Moon Knight coming out and other films.
Yeah.
So it is a vampire movie. So we slid it over to H&R. And everybody is throwing tomatoes at me since. But we'll find out what happens here. Let's get into this. Brian W. Smith, sir, what is your first impression of Morbius?
First impression, I liked it. It's. I saw it in 4DX, so maybe I was just distracted by the movie being a ride. But I
Might need it.
that might have helped a little. But I'm not. I'm familiar with the character maybe in passing, but I'm not familiar with the comic books. So I saw it as a movie, and I feel like I've longed for vampire movies. I love vampire fiction and vampire films, so I was looking forward to it. I like the makeup. They put it front and center in the trailer, so I was looking forward to seeing that. Yeah, I mean, I would have liked it to maybe perhaps be a little edgier. I mean, with that face, it's definitely an R-rated vampire face, and I think it needed an R-rated movie around it. But hey, I mean, vampires flying around and doing all their stuff. I was fine with it, so it was fun.
Fine with it. It was fun. Okay. All right. We'll talk about
that. I don't see the 17% Rotten Tomato score. I didn't see that. I went in with low expectations, and it was fine.
Yeah, we'll talk about that 17%. That 17%, we may agree or we may disagree.
The audience score liked it, so
yeah, they did. All right, Christopher G. Morse there. Your first impression of Morbius,
or as I call it, laborious.
Laborious.
This is the most boring Marvel-centric movie I've ever seen. And I think a lot of it has to do with. I'm thinking maybe I forgot what the guy's name who's over Sony, but I think this movie got tinkered with, because you're making a joke earlier about Tyrese Gibson. He's supposed to have like a mechanical arm. The trailers, he had a mechanical arm, and he was supposed to be like, I guess like what's his name from like Winter Soldier or whatever. But somehow that got excised. So there's like so many. I mean, there's so many plot lines, so many characters that are extraneous in this film. It's as bloodless as the blue plasma in this film. There's so many things that don't make sense. The CGI worked well when it was in the 2000s, but not in this film. I thought the look of him looked okay, but the CGI was bad in parts where you'd see them moving their heads, and it was like bad deep fake. It was, and there's stuff I didn't like. I think it has some of the worst action I've ever seen in the MCU or the DC universe. This makes Zack Snyder films look good to me. You got vampires who have like chemtrails. I mean, it's like, and you don't even see half of what the geography of how they're fighting. You can't see, except for those 1 second things when they're about to hit each other, and they cut away before you see it. There's no blood in it. It copies so many different things. It copies aliens. It copies. It actually uses musical things that sound just like Dark Knight, and copies scenes from Dark Knight, which are much better in Dark Knight. There's like. Yeah, there's just so many things that they copy from. He tries to be very, very Matrixy, and it just makes you realize Matrix is much better than what he's trying to accomplish with this. I thought everybody was monotone. I mean, talk about lifeless. The actors were the embodiment of lifeless. I thought everybody was, which I heard that Jared Leto was trying to be all method actor so like there's parts of the movie where he was actually using crutches to get around, and they'd have to wait for him to go to his trailer to use the bathroom, so they ended up having to get him a wheelchair so they could wheel him on set, because he's one of those method actors that uses that reason to be an asshole on set. So I don't know. I know if you can't tell, I did not like it. I think it's one of the worst mid-credits things ever that does not explain anything. In fact, it just confuses you. I think after watching this movie, I think Morbius's power, it makes you confused, because I was confused as to they drop storylines. There's a girl in a coma storyline that never gets. I mean, there's so many things they drop in there. You have cops there's no reason for them to be there, because they don't do anything. They just show up after Morbius does his stuff, And as much as I like the guy from, Doctor Who, he doesn't make up for the fact that, he keeps being put in all these genre films, and he's always in the worst ones. So I just maybe just want to go watch Last Night in Soho to see him actually, having a better time. So I don't know. I it's not as bad as what I thought it would be, but it's more boring than I thought it would be. That this film's just as anemic as the vampire in it. I just had so many problems with so many areas of this film. But but that's the long impression. But my first
We got a lot to talk about. All right, so yes, I have been following. I actually remember my dad getting me the Amazing Spider-Man 100 and 101 and 102 because he was on like the last. Or Spider-Man had 8 arms. It was really weird. Not going to get into it, but I remember these characters back in. My dad actually bought me the books. So, wow, when it was originally introduced, and I love the '70s Marvel monsters when they had this big, push of monsters. You had Werewolf by Night, and eventually Moon Knight. You had Frankenstein monster, Tomb of Dracula, which was awesome, and Man Thing, and the Living Mummy, and all kinds of things. And they were all fantastic. Blade would come out of it as well. And Midnight Suns, things I like. So I'm eager for this character, and I like Jared Leto. I think he's underrated. I like his performance in this, and I like enough about this movie to enjoy it. But it's messy. It's messy as fuck. It is a disaster. But I think it's all in the editing. This is the worst edited movie I think I've ever seen. It is just it doesn't make sense. It's not, the action's put together sloppy. There's elements that are really interesting. I thought the first half I was really into what was going on with the characters. And I really thought Matt Smith was having a great time. Every time Matt Smith was on screen chewing up the scenery, he really got what his character was supposed to be. And I think everybody else should have listened to him. But there's like Christopher said, there's all these threads that are like, if they're not going to keep them in there, why put them in there at all? And I don't know. It was so strange. And it does, it does everything that's going to, piss off some people. It sets up the sequel right at the end, and then it throws in these stingers that are just the most head scratching, WTF stingers ever. I kind of like where they're wanting to go with it, but the steps they're taking to do it are just atrocious. But in the end, we'll get into this more, but Brian was saying, 17%. I think that's a little harsh. I think it's a little too harsh. But what was the audience score? It's more like in the 70s, right?
It was much higher. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think it's that good either. but it's, I mean, it. This is we keep saying MCU, and it really isn't MCU. This is the Sony Spider-Verse, if you will. The Amazing Spider-Man and the original Spider-Man are a part of it. So is Tom as well, but hasn't really had just a solo Sony film yet. Well, it'll be interesting to see when he ever shows up without the MCU part of it. But where was I going with all this? The fact that okay, so you compare it to the closest thing you have lately to compare it to is Venom, and the two Venom movies. This is right up there with them, right? They're all the same in that respect. There's things to like, but this is weird. There's this weird shadow hanging over it where it feels like corporate stepped in and smashed, stepped on a what could be a very different film. It doesn't feel like this is the film that got lensed. It's the film that got put together on the editing table, and it shows. So with that said, let's get into the spoilers right now. We'll start off with Christopher J. Moore's. Are you ready? Easter eggs.
Easter eggs. Okay. Yeah, we'll go through.
He's like, what is he saying?
It was more funding YouTube Easter eggs about this than it was in the movie. And actually, a few of the Easter eggs, if you really pay attention to the newspaper headlines, there's a lot of hidden Easter eggs in that. There's one that says 90 days since the last sighting of superheroes. So that's kind of interesting. Also, there's one headline called Rhino on the Loose, Zoo Hoax Fools Us All. So that could be a reference to the Rhino, which I don't know if that's a reference to Andrew Garfield's Rhino or a new Rhino. Also, there's another one, Black Cat, friend or foe. So we get a reference to
Ooh.
that, and supposedly that character may show up in the a Madam Web movie, I think. Also, there's a let's see, Chameleon's Great Escape, which was a villain of Spider-Man. So,
Yes, it was.
And supposedly that character may show up in the Craven movie. So, evidently, they're putting Easter eggs for other possible movies. So I'll see how that goes. Now, when it comes to Matt, what is his last name? Matt what?
Smith.
Okay. There's a few references to his doctor. When Morbius goes to visit him, the clock is at 11 because he was the 11th Doctor. And then when he says, "How's your pain 1 to 10?" he says, "It's at 11." Wah, wah. So I'm assuming that's intentional, but considering it's so prevalent, and I think even when they show them as kids, it's right before 11. So, who knows? And for those diehard horror film lovers, the boat is called Murnau, which is if you know, F.W. Murnau was directed Nosferatu, so there's a nice little early vampire reference.
I give a half eye roll, but I was like, okay, I'll take it.
Could have been worse.
Well, you can't do a full eye roll because that'd be R-rated in this.
Can't do the USS Stoker, or anything.
That seemed like that would be a lot more. That would be two eye rolls. Yeah. That'd be both your eyeballs. Well, the one part that made my eye roll was the stupid Hulk reference, because you won't like me when I'm hungry.
Right. Oh my God, yes. Oh,
like, really? Okay,
I didn't like that.
Now, it looks like a lot of the graphic designers snuck in a lot of references to things when it came to just stuff that was decorating the world. There's Morbius runs by a poster for the Basilisk, which is a nod to the Morbius enemy about a man turned monster, and he appeared in Morbius #5 back in the 90s. So we get a reference to that. In the train station, there's an ad for a clothing company, and you might get this reference if you listen to what Doc said earlier about the creators, called a clothing company called Thomas and Kane, which of course is a reference to Roy Thomas and Gil Kane, who created Morbius. While Milo and Morbius, or Lucian, whatever name you want to give him, when they're fighting, there's a poster for Demon Fire, which is a reference to a cult in the comics that Morbius fought in Vampire Tales #7 in the 19.
Oh wow, that's a deep one.
74, very deep cut. Another deep cut is well. Here's an even more deep cut. There's a poster for an album called Empathoid Man, which is references to the alien race that Morbius came across in 1977's Peter Parker's Spectacular Spider-Man #6. So anyway, there's a few little Easter eggs here and there. Also, if you notice, if you watch the trailers, they erased a lot of the stuff that connected.
All of it.
Oscorp. There's no longer a building that says Oscorp. Supposedly, what's his name's mechanical arm was supposed to have been created by Oscorp. So all that stuff got stricken from the record. We didn't see that scene where Michael Keaton talks to Morbius. That got fully cut. They kind of changed all that stuff and made it totally different to where it was even more confusing than what it was probably supposed to be. So yeah, there's a lot of stuff that got kind of cut. I don't think that little Spider-Man thing, murderer thing, I don't think is on the wall anymore.
Nowhere.
There's a lot of stuff that kind of got changed where they were like, we don't want to, we want to make our own little thing. This is going to be more of the Venom universe, which they actually, again, they had a Venom reference to Venom as well, where he's like, "Who are you?" "I'm Venom." "No, I'm not." So anyway,
he doesn't do the joke though. He doesn't do
the joke, which I don't know if they might have thrown. I don't know if he actually says it, or sometimes they edit it together to where he seems like it's natural, but then it's just they took audio from another scene. So, but anyway, there's a few little Easter eggs that I noticed.
I want to say there's a Lost Boys reference with the Michael.
Oh, that's right.
I was like, I mean, even the trailer uses "When You're Strange," so I was like, all right.
That's true. That's
I didn't
true.
think about that. Yeah.
Like they were just wearing it on their sleeve. I'm like, all right, I'll go see this vampire movie, whatever it is.
Yeah, Craven the Hunter is being filmed right now. That's the next one up, and then Madam Web will be behind that. So we'll see. This okay. So the movie made, before we get into it, it made what, 40 million roughly over the weekend in the States. Is that going to make this a success, or is the it's weird times, and it's not a high. This isn't a very large budget comparatively when you compare it all.
70. The budget was 75. International, it made around 80.
Right.
Oh.
So,
yeah.
But that's not accounting how much they usually spend.
Yeah. Who knows about the marketing on this?
Marketing. So, and that's over marketing over
3 years.
A couple of years.
Yeah. That's, but a lot of that, it's a loss already, right? They've written off a lot of that marketing as a loss because of COVID. So. I don't know if they would count those years anymore. It's really hard to say. And, there's a lot of red on the. But anyway, okay. So where do we start with this? I think we just should start with what's going to gnaw most all of us, and that's the end credits. Because it really leaves you with that, right? The film leaves you with this weird, what the hell is that going on? And you kind of walk out the door with it. So you're like, did I like the movie or not? I don't know, because the last two scenes are stupid. So we get two end credits. We get one end credit right before the credits, and then we get one mid. There's none at the very end. If you guys wait.
I waited.
I read on the line, so I didn't wait. And
I should just do that from now on.
That's what I do too. Yeah.
So the first one, we get the split in the sky. That's from Spider-Man No Way Home, right? And then in a jail cell somewhere, the Vulture appears, Michael Keaton, and he's like, "I hope the food's better here." Like, that's what he's worried about. Okay, it's weird, but okay. And then it goes. He
just disappeared from one universe to another, and that's the first thing you care about.
I know. I was like, I don't get it, but hey, rock and roll, dude. But then they go into like, that they, there's this couple minutes of just him being freed because they didn't know who he was and all this stuff. And that's like, okay, that's interesting. Maybe. And then we get the mid-roll credits, and then it's Morbius is driving a car, comes to a stop. And then the Vulture shows up in costume with Michael Keaton's voice, not his face, and says he wants to team up to beat up Spider-Man.
First of all, we're in a new universe. They created that outfit from Chitauri technology,
right? So where did he get it?
Where did he get that? I mean, if they erased Oscorp, I mean, where did he get it? And I don't know how much time has passed. I mean, because I don't know. It
doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense that it has the Vulture outfit, because the Vulture outfit is very much the MCU.
Well, that and Morbius is sort of more of an anti-hero. He's not really a full villain. So if they're trying to do Sinister Six, which when Jared Leto was on the he was on the red carpet of some film, and he had a necklace and it had 6 on it. So I don't know if he's trying to hint at it. Obviously he is, but yeah, it doesn't. There's no logic behind any of that. Some random guy shows up. Hey, I mean, we don't even know if there's a Spider-Man. Is there a Spider-Man in this universe? Because they erased him from everything. So
how do you even know about him? I guess I don't know. It's baffling. I mean, I heard it was baffling, and I was like, sure, certainly it can't be that baffling. No, it's that baffling. What are they doing?
Well, it's all the tinkering, because we see that little thing where he says something to him in the trailer, and that seems to be more maybe when he was being transferred or something,
or being released, perhaps going to a court or something, and that made more sense, right? That what we saw in the trailer. I don't know. It just leaves a really bad taste. Brian, do you have any horse in this race? Do you you care about what we're talking about?
The end credits. I mean, I'm kind of done with end credits and post credits because sometimes I just want to leave the theater. So I
Or
really am.
pee.
This is a good film
Right.
for that, right?
And it's one of those things that's like culturally has bled into every type of film now. So I'm seeing it on the festival side and things like that, and that whatever. So I'm just personally I'm kind of over end credits because they very rarely do anything for me. They're like bloopers now. In this, I wasn't familiar with any of what was going on, so I was just sort of like, okay, Michael Keaton. Yeah, it just didn't. It left me with like,
Well, I think the end credits sort of basically are an example of why Sony just doesn't get it.
They don't get it. They don't get it.
They're working. They're more worried about like we need to ham fist our Sinister Six stuff, which they were trying to do before with the Andrew Garfield stuff, with that whole ending to that second Amazing Spider-Man film. They were trying to like, we need to shoehorn this in here because we need to see this, and they keep trying and trying. And it's like, have they not learned from the Marvel method? Tell a good story with these individual heroes, and then you find a way to incorporate it. But when you're trying to like just shove it in people's face right away, it's like, come on, and that's what it felt like. And I think that's why, at least for me, I think that's why Morbius didn't work, because it just seemed like it was just thrown together haphazardly so that they could get to their next thing. It's like you just build a shitty ramp to your next thing, but then you realize I built a shitty ramp, which, not everybody's going to go up the ramp because it's going to fall apart, Yeah,
and it's also sequel baiting a lot. But all right, so let's go into the movie now. And that's you said it was just boring, Christopher, and I thought it was poorly edited. Brian, you said you liked it.
I liked it in a tolerated sense. I like vampire movies, and I wanted something. I feel like the last vampire films that we had were like Twilight. So dear God, help us, give me something with fangs. So I think I was at that point where I was just like, please, just give me something with fangs where people look like vampires, and then it's not trying to not be a vampire movie. So it was a vampire movie. It gave me that. It gave me the flying around and all that sort of stuff. It's cool. I like that stuff, and had some suspenseful horror little moments here and there that I'll it's just here and few and far between. But as a horror fan, I'll take them. And we'll get into that, I guess, in the favorite scenes. But I was fine with it. The two ending scenes didn't really do anything for me, but I thought the friendship between Matt and Jared, I thought they did a pretty good job. I didn't quite buy the romance with the doctor.
I just feel like it came out of nowhere.
It came out of nowhere. It came out of nowhere because she's the woman in the movie, and that's basically it felt like a studio thing. Like anyone else, I think.
Well, it's not a studio thing.
Matt and Jared together.
Real quick, it is. I mean, Martine in the storyline is Morbius's girlfriend in the story.
They probably should have set that up.
It's not set up really well in here, but that comes from the comics. That's straight out of the comics. And what happens at the end of the movie is also straight out of the comics.
Okay.
Well, and I guess
very well as colleagues, but
that's the thing. I think that to me it just felt like camaraderie, and so when they kiss out of the blue, I was like, I felt so forced,
Right.
And I think that's the problem. I feel like. And you, I mean, I'm sure you know this as a screenwriter, Brian, but it's like, there was so many things that didn't make sense. Like for instance, one of the things that was very infuriating, you have this scene where he's supposed to get like the Nobel Prize or something, or this award or whatever. And they cut right before and they said, oh, I turned it down. It's like, that could have just easily just shown me that picture of that newspaper that they spent all this money having all these people in this room for this whole event, and then they don't even show the main part of it. And to me, film.
It was terrible. That's bad editing. Yep.
Well, and I think story-wise, this film is bloodless. Not only is it bloodless when you get a guy gets his throat ripped, no blood comes out at all. And I was like, I've seen Jurassic Park. You can show some blood.
Right.
I was like, what? Why is there no blood in any of this stuff? But then it's like you have, I mean, I'm sorry, the little kids, we had the flash middle, flashback, flash forward in the very beginning of the film. It's too many jumping. And that the little kids were horrible actors. That whole scene with the kids was just, I just want to jump out a window watching that scene. I mean, it just felt so. It didn't really make sense because it seemed like he was more of an engineer than a doctor.
Yeah.
You know, it's like there's things that don't. It does not make sense, you know, and then you know, and then there's like they imply certain powers, but then all of a sudden he has like a Street Fighter Hadouken with bats, you know, or Badouken as I call it, you know, or Pokemon power where he can create all the. I mean, there's so many things they just briefly show things and we just let it happen. You know, and even the connection between him and the Matt Smith character, other than them being kids, which he was an old asshole to that kid. You know, and he kept calling him Milo the whole time. That wasn't his name. And then,
Right.
then what's his name? Who was the old guy who didn't age, by the way?
Right.
the doctor who was already old when they met him as kids is the same age when they meet him as adults.
I started wondering, did he take the blood because he gets slashed later and his blood is blue? Or was that just bad effects?
It might have been just bad effects because
I was like, did he has? Because it seemed like if the blood helped Tyrese with his arm, I was like, is the blood like a mass manufactured? Is that like a plot thread that just wasn't carried on? Like,
well,
everyone has it.
There were more scenes of him in the trailers than there were in this movie.
Like maybe right. Somehow he got some of the blood and that's how he hadn't aged or something. I don't know.
But what did the cops do?
They just walked around and bantered.
They would just show up at places and look at the crime scene, and there was really no use for them, you know. And right. I think, you know, and if I want to see fighting, this made the fighting in the Transformer movies more noticeable because it's like all this stuff moving around so fast. It was too fast. And you have those brief moments like we need a little bit of bullet time, slow motion stuff going on. And then they would cut away right when people would try to hit each other or slash at each other. So it was like
you never got the impact. I never got the impact.
Yeah.
In 40X, it's a total ride. So anytime they spiraled, it was like you just
maybe that would have been more interesting. I would have been more like, well,
I was prepared for disappointment, so I was like, let me just spend a little extra, just make it a ride.
Maybe that would have been one time. I know, Doc, you had a bad experience with that.
Well, I once saw the Batman with it, and that was bad.
Yeah,
that was bad.
I can understand how that, but this, I think anything to make, you know, maybe I should have drank like 10 drinks before I watched this film or smoked a doobie. Maybe that would have made, or taken mushrooms or something before I saw the film. Maybe that would have made the film a whole lot better. But I just,
you already got trails. You don't need to do much.
Like sometimes I don't worry about the plot or don't worry things. If you can win me over visually, if you can win me over with dialogue or just big characters, you know, there's a lot of Tim Burton stuff I love just because of the visuals, or there's other films that are just because of the humor of it. You know, there's a lot of comedies like that. I don't mind if the story doesn't make sense, but this is like, there's so many missing segments of it. It just felt like a Swiss cheese of a story that I just kept falling through. And I know what is going on here. Why is this happening? And we just get to certain points so fast and they don't make any sense. And then, you know, and I'm sorry. I thought Jared Leto was horrible in this. I thought he was just like slightly grumpy throughout the whole film. He was really monotone, slightly grumpy. And, you know, and I just, but he can get away with that because he's got his beautiful locks and his abs and stuff, and people are like, ooh, Jared Leto with his shirt off. But that only gets you so far when it comes to like playing a character. Like, I don't know, there's no chemistry between anybody. This the more I think about this film, the more it makes my head explode, and I hate feeling like that because I know there's other people that kind of like it.
All right, well, we'll grab a hold of that. So let's wrap things up with our final thoughts, our score 1 to 5, and our favorite scene. Brian, sir, you are up first.
So 1 to 5. I know I was generous once before with like a 3, but I'll give this like a 2.5.
Okay.
I guess it's, you know, it's fine. It's so I say see it in 40X if you want to just get a early roller coaster ride out of it while we're waiting for the real spring and summer temps to happen. Yeah, 2.5. I did have a question. Did they ever show how Matt Smith got the serum? Like, was it implied that he stole one of the vials? Because I think they never showed the extra shot of one of the vials missing.
They never showed it. It was just implied because he was in that room that had the 2 serums that
maybe he just grabbed one
he
or
stole
something.
one. Yeah.
Yeah, that was that missing shot that I was waiting for because it was set up, the 2 green vials, and then they didn't really revisit it. So yeah, and that and the blue blood. Those are my 2 little gripes, and the lack of chemistry between him and the doctor. But otherwise, am I picking my favorite scene too, or no?
Yeah, please.
Okay. I would say my favorite scene was probably the nurse alone in the hospital. I thought that was a cool visual scene. Again, I miss vampire movies. I miss vampire movies. I just want some scary stuff, and that gave me some stuff. That gave me a little bit of thrill.
A little bit. I'll give you
Yeah,
that.
just visually. I mean, it kind of reminded me of The Descent, but that was a dream sequence. But this was interesting with the light, the hall lights going out as she's walking, things like that. I like that. So it was cool.
Yep. Had a moment. Yep.
What kind of hospital has lights set up like that so far apart? Really?
Lights in a vampire movie.
No. That's the stupidest hospital lighting in any hallway ever.
To conserve. Was it green? It's a green.
I was like, was this hospital sponsored by James Wan? It's like, or the guy who directed Lights Out. It just felt like, purposely.
I was like, you'll never see a scene like that in Underworld. I was like, I'll take, or Twilight. I was like, I'll take it. Whatever. Just give me that. I gotta wait for Salem's Lot to come out now.
How dare you talk bad about Underworld? I will watch. I have all the Underworld films on Blu-ray, my friend. I will watch those a million times more than any. I will never. I don't think I'll ever watch this film again.
I binged them once. They were.
Some of the later ones did a little bit, but I'm sorry, but I'm a Kate Beckinsale person, so Kate Beckinsale is my Jared Leto to some people.
There you go.
Morbius or more BS.
More BS. I love it.
I got a million of them. Or bore dumb BS. This film. I mean, I'll say this. It's not the worst film ever.
No.
It's not the greatest film ever.
No,
but it's one of the most boring ones.
Yeah.
I think it just, if anything, it annoyed me to no end. And granted, maybe if this film came out like late 90s or early 2000s, it might have been cool back then, I guess. Or I don't know. No, probably wouldn't. No, I'm not even gonna say that because I grew up during the era, and this film doesn't even level up to that. There's so many missing problems with this film. It's got problems, and I don't know who to blame it on, but at the same time, I feel like a lot of that also comes to just in the creation of it. You can still take parts away, but I'm not sure if there's any kind of parts that would actually make this 1,000 times better by any stretch of the imagination. So I think you can add stuff in. Maybe there's missing parts. I mean, to me, it made me miss things like Blade. You know, I feel like having a bloodless vampire film doesn't make sense. You know, I've never seen the Twilight films because that's just not my thing. But I just, like Lost Boys and stuff like that. I mean, I just kind of miss it where you're trying to create the menace behind that, but you don't have the gory or the bloody elements to back it up. And granted, this is supposed to be a superhero type thing, but I don't understand why you can do that with Venom and not Morbius. So I don't know. It's got a lot of missing parts that make it fall apart for me. And I just found it to be boring and bland and about as fake as the blue blood. It's not the true plasma of an MCU film. So I'll give this. I'm giving I'm giving it 1.5.
Oh,
I'm sorry. I just.
That's actually higher than I thought you were going to go.
I wanted to go lower, but like I said, it's not a horrible film. It's just it's just a bland.
That's pretty horrible.
Well, it's still horrible. It's still bad. It's still bad for me. I'm not sure if I could pick a good scene. I don't know if anything really stuck out to me that
You're gonna pass? You're gonna put an official pass on a favorite
I'm
scene?
debating about it.
Oh my.
Would you say it was better than Dracula 2000?
I like Dracula 2000 better, actually.
So
I mean,
that's
the element. I mean, there's elements of it that are actually at least entertaining. Even though it didn't work for their expanded universe, their dark universe.
Well, I think he's talking about. Okay, so you.
Oh no,
you're talking about.
the dimension.
Oh, I'm thinking about Dracula Untold, am I? Dracula.
Yeah, you're talking about Dracula Untold. He's talking about the old one from.
Wait a minute, is that
Gerard Butler was Dracula?
Oh, was that the one where they connected it to the Bible that he was?
Yeah.
I like at least I like the story. I think was interesting and new. So I didn't hate that film. It's not a great film, but at least the story is a million times more interesting than anything in this, which is like I don't need to see my vampires have chemtrails. I will say I'll say when Matt Smith's dancing.
That works.
I'll say what, because Matt Smith I think is the only kind of redeemable thing, even though again, you don't really know much about his character at all,
or his motivation.
You don't know anything.
His position is unclear.
Yeah.
You know,
although
he does all the funding, but how?
Although he always has that kind of face where it feels like he has a mask. I don't know why I feel like that way. He's always got the odd shaped face that feels like it's a mask of his own. But yeah, I think I'd say if I can pick anything, maybe when he's dancing, because I was like, I wish I could be as entertained as he is right now.
Ah, nice. Yeah, I wish I was having as good time with this as he was. That's for sure. I'm coming off like I really didn't like it, and the fact is, it's not a good film. It's messy, but in the end, I found myself enjoying a good portion of the film. I will agree that it gets a little sluggish at points, and there are threads that are just dropped. It's kind of ridiculous. But at its core, I liked the base of what was going on. And then the movie pissed me off at the end. So this is a really hard movie for me to judge. I want to give it a 2.75, but I feel like I'm being generous doing that, right, Brian? We just feel like I feel like I should be reeling that back. That doesn't feel like that's right. It should be more like a 1.75 maybe. But that's where I felt like writing down when I was done. So I'm going to go with that. And my favorite scene. It is hard to pick a favorite scene. So my favorite thing, even though as much as I like, so the actual core character and look and feel of Morbius, I think they achieved. I mean, I felt like this was the Morbius character. He had the look, he had, it had the story that more or less was, behind him and what happened. So I thought in the essence, they captured the character. They kind of screwed up everything else around it. But Matt Smith coming in, he was just having a good time. He was really enjoying being the gothic vampire. His vampire was the closest thing to a gothic vampire that we had, right? And it really isn't, but it's much closer to what Jared Leto's doing, right? He's fully embracing, the vampirism, right? And anytime he's like really up in people's faces screaming and his face is changing, I was having a ball. So I'm going to go with anytime Matt Smith is full vampire. Those were my favorite scenes.
I wonder if his cane was meant to be I know it was part of his condition, but later it seemed like the single cane had the sort of Barnabas Collins feel to it. So maybe that was a little minor.
Oh, maybe. Yeah, because he left it in the jail cell so the guy can get out.
Yeah.
Oh, there was another rip off. They ripped off what's the movie with Kevin Spacey?
Oh, right. Oh, Usual Suspects.
Usual Suspects. When he's walking and they're focusing on his feet, it's like the ending of Usual Suspects. So there's another thing that kind of ripped off.
I didn't even
much
think about
better in
that.
film than this one.
Well, there you go, folks. That's our review for Morbius. Will we ever get more Morbius? More. How do you do more? Morbius 2. Will we get a Morbius Returns? Morbius sucks more. I don't know.
Maybe I'll get an R-rated version, or who knows?
I doubt it. I don't
wish.
Think I don't think they're going to do it.
I think as long as it's connected to the Spider-Man universe, although the Venom films, so if they're going to team up Venom with them.
Well, Venom wasn't R.
Was it not R?
I thought it was.
No, the Venoms weren't R-rated, were they? Do we need to IMDb this?
I thought he was like eating people and killing people horribly.
Well, they implied it, but they didn't actually do it.
Maybe they didn't.
Wow.
We're okay. So we got to do this. We have to do this.
I wish there was someone in the editing room going, "Why is the blood blue?" Like you just need that. You just need that one person to ask.
Well, that's
like,
the thing.
Don't show it. You know.
I feel like a big chunk of this movie was cut out. You know, because it's a very short film.
Yeah,
what, this
hour
one?
And 48. Hour and
48. Yeah, I thought it was long compared.
No, well, it felt long, but it's actually and it's probably like maybe an hour and a half just the movie. The credits are probably 10 minutes.
Yeah, both Venom movies are PG-13. So.
Wow.
Oh, are they? Okay.
Yeah, they wanted to go R, but they wouldn't let them, so they had to cut out.
Well, I wish they had, because that's
the head eating and stuff. So they let Carnage get a little bit more active than Venom.
Yeah, when you have a title with Carnage in the title and you have to be PG-13.
Yeah. But yeah, so there you go. It'd be interesting to see, do we hold out hopes for Craven? I don't know. We'll find out next year. Next January. All right. Thank you for listening to our review. Please leave your comments down below. What did you think? What did we get wrong? What did we miss? Maybe
you loved it.
Like you said, you had a friend that loved it.
I have a cosplay friend, Genesee Watch. She loved it and says it was great. The character was just as how she'd imagine it too, and she loved Jared Leto. So, it's all subjective. So.
It can be. All right. Well, Brian, Christopher, thank you for joining me so much.
No problem.
Or thank you so much for joining me. Proper English.
Thanks for having me here.
Let's say good night.
Good night.
Good night.